Pressure is a key component of just about any chromatography run. In this video, I want to share some details about how pressure is managed on the AKTA Avant, Pure, Go, or really just about any chromatography system. All of these systems have the same basic setup with the pump, then a column, then the UV and conductivity and pH sensors after that. The most basic principle here is that pressure is caused by flow trying to go through the system components, but mostly the column, the flow restrictor, and the tubing. The main sensor is the system pressure. It measures the pushback from beginning to end of the flow path. The system pressure sensor is after the pump and is physically located between the two pump heads. The AKTA Avant has a similar sensor on the sample pump and a set of sensors in the column valve that measure the pre and post column pressure, which allows you to measure the column pressure drop, or delta P. Other systems like the Pure and Go can support column valves with pressure sensors in them too, but normally they don't come with one. One of the key components to system pressure is the flow restrictor, which is this little thing. You'll find it on the pH valve for the Avant and just before the outlet valve on other systems, like the Go or the Pure. It's supposed to provide 0.2 megapascals during a normal run. Generally, it is recommended that you use the flow restrictor because it helps to prevent bubbles from gassing out of solution, UV drift, and ghost peaks. The system and column, which is the glass and screens that hold up the resin, and the packed bed all have different pressure tolerances. It's important to keep in mind the tolerances of all three of these. Normally, we're just worried about the most fragile one, which is the packed bed. For example, the AKTA Avant has a tolerance of 20 megapascals or so. An XK16 column has a pressure tolerance of 0.5 megapascals. That's like the glass. But most resins packed inside the column will have a tolerance of 0.3 megapascals. But for SEC columns, usually it's 0.15 megapascals. So we really just need to focus on the tolerance of the packed bed and run the system at a flow rate that won't damage it. You may be asking if you're supposed to use the flow restrictor, which adds 0.2 megapascals, and just as an example, an SEC column has a tolerance of 0.15 megapascal, then what gives? How is this supposed to work? The flow restrictor only affects the hardware, whereas the packed bed only experiences the pressure drop. So, for example, if the system pressure is 0.32 megapascals and the delta P is 0.13 while running an SEC column, then we're well within tolerance. But in my experience, this isn't always true. I prefer a more empirical approach because I've crushed many beds while trying to run like this before. I usually try to run without using the restrictor first, because if the UV is steady and there's no gassing out or no UV blips at a lower pressure, then you're also less likely to ruin your column at a lower pressure. Here are a couple of other notes. You can set separate pressure alarms and watches for system pressure and delta P, which will be watched all independently. The system can actively manage the flow rate for you to stay under a certain pressure. I made a whole video on how to set this up, and that link is below. Viscosity and temperature of a solution are important to keep in mind too. Here are some common solutions for preparative chromatography that affect the pressure. I've actually screwed up a few columns because of the 20% ethanol's high viscosity at 4 degrees. Tubing diameter and boreholes of the valves affect the back pressure of a column. If you're experiencing pressure issues, check that your tubing is all the same diameter or color, or at least close. For example, it's cool to use beige and green together on an Avant 150, but maybe stay away from orange. And I recommend never using blue. I really need to make a separate video about troubleshooting pressure issues like in actual use. In the meantime, I hope this helps you, and good luck with your purifications.